How many hours you used to work during that?
16, 17 hours a day.
16 hours a day.
7 days a week. Mr. Narendra Modi has been criticized for 70-hour week. You know, when I first read it, I said, 70 घंटे तो कम है.
आप बोलोगे 80, 90, so that's like...
Tell me one thing, you're a chartered accountant and you're a rank holder. So do you think it made a difference? People who say grades don't matter probably never got good grades in their lives. Grades don't guarantee success, but grades open doors. Have you seen the Hari Sadhu ad?
Yes, write down Hari Sadhu. H for Hitler, A for arrogant, R for rascal, I for idiot.
Naukri was launched on 1st April 1997. So there were two other companies which were launched on 1st April, which is Make My Trip and India Mart. India Mart in 1996, 1st April, Make My Trip on 1st April 2000. Do you think I should incorporate my next company on 1st April? Hi everyone, welcome to Konversation with Kushal. Once again, today we have the OG of Indian startup ecosystem, who's the founder and executive vice chairman of InfoEdge and has also invested in a lot of startups including Zomato and Policy Bazaar, two of the best ones. Thank you so much, Sanjeev sir, for accepting my invitation. It's going to be super good.
Thank you for inviting me, Kushal. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we're going to discuss your entire journey, sir, and we have also got some amazing questions to ask you about your life, about your investing philosophies and all of that. So I read one of your tweet where you mentioned that grades do matter and how the top 50 people from your class of 10th standard are doing exceptionally well as well. And on the other hand, there are some people who always state that skills is something which matter and grades is something which is not very important, academics is not very important. Can you tell us what exactly do you feel now?
So people who say grades don't matter probably never got good grades in their lives. Right? People who got good grades, they saw several doors open for them. Now, grades don't guarantee success, but grades open doors. So, which subjects you are able to take in class 11 and 12 depends on what grades you get in class 10. Which colleges admit you after class 12 depends on your grade in class 12 or your performance in the competitive exam, in the entrance exams. And every door that opens, which is a desirable door, an aspirational door, it's a step function. It moves you to the next level and then you're leaping off that level. Now, can you reach that level without that platform? Yes, you can. But when you get good grades, you're more or less guaranteed a better start. Right? My first job was at Lintas. Lintas came only to St. Stephen's College in Delhi University, Ohio. They didn't go to other colleges. I got good grades in class 12 and so I joined St. Stephen's. That door would not have opened otherwise. Now, could I have succeeded by joining Lintas? Maybe. But it would be a different route and with fewer guarantees.
Right. Can you give some examples of the people who had their best grades and they're doing well from your batches as well?
I mean, there are lots of people. There are professors at American universities. So in my class, out of a batch of 235, I think 52 went to IIT. 52 cleared the IIT entrance exam. Maybe 40 went. Right? They automatically got into a different track. There were 14 people from my class in St. Stephen's College in economics. They automatically got into a different track. So grades matter.
Right.
And make no mistake about it. Does networking matter? Yes. Do skills matter? Yes. But they're not mutually exclusive. You can get good grades and get skills and be good at networking.
Right. Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I think I'm a big fan of someone who is, of course, good at networking, good at academics, and then...
No, but tell me one thing. You're a chartered accountant and you're a rank holder.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think it made a difference?
I got good opportunities after I got a rank in my CA finals. I think the opportunities that a rank holder gets in the start, the non-rank holders don't get. And these opportunities helped me in order to scale my career.
Exactly. So certain doors open, which might not have opened if you didn't get the grades, if you did not go to that college or did not clear this exam. Certainly, if you're not a chartered accountant at all, some of these doors would not have opened.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But then there are also examples of other people who have dropped out of their colleges and built billion-dollar companies. What do you have to say about that?
I think
although they are very small in number.
I think it's fantastic and they're exceptionally talented. Right? But if you're not that great or that lucky to build a $1 billion company even though you didn't have the benefit of great education, then maybe that's a 0-1 situation. Right? With the grades, you're guaranteed a certain minimum result.
Right. Makes sense. Also, I got to know that you chose St. Stephen's College and not IIT Delhi. You had also given your like the IIT Delhi examination, which is the JEE exam, and you had an option to go there, if I'm not wrong. So what happened?
Yeah, so it's complicated. Okay, it's not so simple. So I'm not this crazy contrarian guy. I usually have a rationale for not doing something. So there was a 3-year period, 1978, 1979, 1980, when the country was switching over from class 11 to class 12. Right? Prior to that, school was still class 11 only. And different states in India were switching in one of these 3 different years, not at the same time. So the IIT authorities, the people who were deciding on the JEE, said we have to give equal opportunity to everybody. So we are happy to take people who finish class 11, whether or not that is the board exam. So if you're in a state where class 11 is the board exam, you can write it. If you're in a state where class 12 is the board exam, you can still write it after class 11. So that is equal opportunity. Now, Delhi had switched over. Delhi had switched over in 1978. So I had the opportunity to write the IIT entrance after class 11 without completing class 12. So in other words, I can join IIT, but I will not be a high school pass. So like, all young, ambitious students in a very studious school with, middle class parents, we all said, hey, we've got 2 shots at IIT, and one after class 11, one after class 12. And if you get after class 11, you save a year. So fantastic, study hard and getting after class 11. So all my friends did that, I did that, we joined coaching classes and we went. Now, as luck would have it, I cleared the entrance exam. I didn't get a great rank, it was 1300 something, but it was okay, I could have gone. Right? However, when I went for my counseling, which is, you have to go to counseling for counseling when you join IIT, where they'll allocate your department, they tell you what you can get, they'll do a medical test. So in the medical test, it turned out that I was partially colorblind. So the doctor said, son, it's okay, you can join. Some departments and some careers may be closed to you, and it'll go down in your permanent medical record, but most stuff is okay, you can join. Now this came to me as a bit of a surprise, and I had not known I was partially colorblind. And for the first time, I asked myself a question, which I'd never asked earlier. Why do I want to be an engineer? Right? And I couldn't find the answer. At the same time, I got worried that going into IIT, I've got a known disability. There are certain restrictions, and I'm not even a high school pass. So if something goes wrong and I have to leave IIT, if the rules change, for example, if I have to leave IIT after 2nd or 3rd year and drop out, I won't even be a high school pass. So अगर मेरे को और कोई college करना है, I will have to go back to class 12, write the exam again, write the exam, which I've not written, pass it and then go to another college. And I said, यार ये तो risk है. I'm a bit of a coward, मैं डरपोक हूँ. People say entrepreneur is risk taker. I don't agree. I believe entrepreneur is risk averse. I'm certainly very risk averse.
Why do you say so?
I don't like taking risks. I like to play safe. Okay. And so I said, this. Now I also reasoned that mine was the last year you could write it after class 11 because the whole country was switching over to class 12. So I said, look, my junior batch can't write it. All my good guys from my batch have already gone to IIT. So there's no competition next year. And it's becoming a 4-year course from a 5-year course. So my graduation date from IIT will not change. अब 4 साल का course हो रहा है. If I join after class 12. And I have a very good chance of getting a second time because competition nahi hai मेरे को. So why don't I spend 1 more year in school, get my class 12 certificate, right? And then I'm set and I don't lose anything. The only risk is I have to clear the exam again. But that's a good risk because all the good guys from my batch have gone. My junior guy can't write it. Junior batch can't write it. So on this reasoning, I did not join IIT and I continued in class 12. In that 1 year, I thought about it. I said, why do I want to be an engineer? It was, for me now, an existentialist question. I had never asked myself that question. You wanted to write the IIT because सबको करता है, it's a done thing. My brother had gone to IIT. All good boys in my school wrote the IIT entrance. Okay, and I came to one realization that I didn't want to be an engineer. I wanted to be an IITian. I was joining a club, a tribe. I wanted the brand. What the engineer did, I did not know. And would I be passionate about it? I did not know in his job, right? So in a sense, through the herd mentality thing. So I realized that, right? As luck would have it, I did well in class 12. And I got an admission offer from St. Stephen's College, economics. And I said, ये भी brand है, ये भी club है, ये भी tribe है, वो भी tribe है. वो 4 साल का है, 3 साल का है. Now I had done science with bio in school. I knew nothing about economics. But I knew I was not passionate about engineering. So I asked myself a question, why should I spend 4 years doing something I'm not passionate about when I can spend 3 years doing something I know nothing about? And so I took a decision to, again, not join IIT. But, so yeah, I had the option to join IIT twice, but I chose St. Stephen's.
Do you think your life would have been different if you would have joined IIT?
It almost certainly would have been different.
And do you think you would have been more successful as compared to this if you would have?
I cannot say, but look, I have no regrets. I think St. Stephen's was good.
Got it. And why you wanted the IIT brand, what was the main trigger point or reason behind?
Yeah, it was expected of me. Parents, elder brother, friends, teachers. You're a good student, you go to IIT. As simple as that.
Right. And so today also you feel that students nowadays are chasing brands as compared to the curriculum which is taught? And is that the right thing to do?
So look, the truth is, in this country, the subject you study in college is often determined by the marks you get or the entrance exam you clear. A certain JEE rank will give you computer science, a certain JEE rank will give you civil engineering, and a certain JEE rank will do textile technology. Right? You ask half the guys who are in other departments, what do you really want to study? I want to study computer science. नहीं वो rank नहीं मिली. Right? Even which college you join and what course you do in Delhi University or any other university depends on class 12 marks. Depends on your class 12 marks, not on your passion. And that's one way in which we said we'll start Ashoka University and it'll be different. So you get admission to Ashoka University, you can declare your major after 1.5 years, whatever you want to study. So the subject you choose has got nothing to do with your class 12 marks. Your class 12 marks determine whether you get into Ashoka or not. और सब्जेक्ट उसके बाद आप डिसाइड करो क्या पढ़ना है. And so you can study what you're passionate about after you get into Ashoka. That's what we thought. So that's one logic of, we have 8-9 reasons we started Ashoka, this is one of them.
Right. Yeah, I'll dive deeper into the Ashoka in the later part of the conversation. But let's talk about your stint at St. Stephen's College as well. You spent 3 years there. What did St. Stephen teach you and how did your personality change after going there for 3 years?
So, see, school was highly, highly regimented. The school I went to, St. Columbus, was big on academics, big on discipline, big on character building. Right? There was corporal punishment. You got caned if you stepped out of line. All boys school. Okay. Delhi University was freedom. Do what you want, and if you choose not to do something, it's okay. Just make sure your attendance is above 2/3. You can write the exam. Uske baad, it's up to you. So that was newfound freedom for me. It was a new set of friends. I moved into college residence. The hostel in Stephens is called residence. So I was residing in college. That was a new experience, living away from home. So college for me was a fair bit about growing up with a different experience. How you dealt with that freedom, however, would determine what will become to you or what will become of you, right? So eventually, I finished college, and so what had happened was that when I was in first year college, my brother had been to IIT Kanpur, then IIM Ahmedabad, and then, after 1 year of working in the corporate sector, he decided to quit and go and do his PhD from the US, Stanford University. And on the day of his visa interview, 4 or 5 of his IIM-A classmates had come over because they had done the same thing, and they all had visa interviews on the same day. They'd come over for lunch to our place because many of them from outside Delhi, and they had come to the US Embassy in Delhi for the visa interview. So they had came over for lunch. I was there. It was the beginning of my first year in college, maybe July, August, and they were leaving in September. And I asked them, why are you doing this? You went to IIM Ahmedabad, you got these great jobs, you're being paid well. What went wrong? And so one of his friends took me aside and chatted with me, and he said, I'll tell you what went wrong. We did our MBA straight after IIT. So we had no idea what we were getting into. For us, it was an extension of college. It's after we started working, we realized what working life is like. And we have all figured we don't want this life. So we want to go and do PhDs in the US and then become academics. That's our interest. It's not working in the corporate sector. And therefore, my advice to you is if you want to do an MBA, do it after 2 or 3 years of working. You'll be clear that you want this life, then you go do an MBA. Second is you will learn a lot more from your MBA program, from your MBA course, if you have worked for 2 or 3 years and can relate what you're learning to real life in industry. Third reason he gave me was, he says, if you look at the best business schools in the world, which are the American business schools, Harvard, Stanford, MIT, they all insist on 2 or 3 years of work experience before you can get admission. There's a logic and reason for that. So, जो हमने भूल की थी कि doing an MBA straight after college, वो तुम मत करना. And that stuck with me. So in third year college, I wrote the CAT. There weren't too many jobs for BAs then. So you wrote the CAT. I wrote it as a backup. That time there were just 3 IIMs, A, B, C. I got admission to IIM Calcutta, and I got a job at Lintas, which had come to college to hire for the first time. And I remembered what my friends, my brother's friend said, and I said, I will work for 2 or 3 years and then do my MBA. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
So, so there was always a logic and a rationale for the seemingly contrarian decisions that I took.
Yeah. Is there any specific framework that you have before taking decisions, or to put it other way, like what is the entire process of decision making? Because we get to know whether a decision is right or wrong after like 3 years or 5 years, depending on what is the final outcome.
Yeah.
But the process of taking that decision is very confusing at that point in time. You did not go to IIT Delhi, you went to St. Stephen's. You did not go to IIM Calcutta, waited, worked for 2-3 years, and then went into IIM Ahmedabad. So any process or framework you have in mind which you would want to share?
No, there's usually, I don't have a process or framework, but there's usually a good reason, especially if you're taking a decision that is unusual or contrary to what most people would normally take in the same circumstances.
Right.
And in both these cases, in all these three cases, I had what I thought then were compelling reasons. First, I didn't want, in the first time, I didn't want to, go to IIT without a high school pass certificate. I wanted that class 12 certificate because I had turned out to be colorblind. Second instance, I had got an offer from St. Stephen's and I got IIT, and I said, both solve my purposes, suit my purposes equally well. St. Stephen's perhaps slightly better. Right? The third time was the good, solid advice that my brother's friend gave me. About doing an MBA only after working.
Right. Fair. And then like St. Stephen's was done, and then you got into Lintas. You worked there for 3 years.
3 years.
And then you got into IIM Ahmedabad. Let's talk about your work experience at Lintas. What was your salary at that point in time? Do you remember?
So my salary was 1,500 rupees a month.
Okay.
उसमें से 100 रुपये PF करता था
हाँ.
और 20 रुपये महाराष्ट्र प्रोफेशनल टैक्स करता था. I do not know if that tax still exists, but उस समय था. So I was getting 1380 in hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how was that entire work experience of
I think the best thing that could happen to me. Okay, was the 3 years I did in Lintas. So I have a theory, which is that just as a child learns the maximum in the first 3 or 4 years of his or her life, so too a working professional learns in the first 2 or 3 or 4 years of his or her professional life, working life. So the organization where you work, the people you work with, the learning experience there matters a lot, because that will shape you for the rest of your career. And I gained many things at Lintas.
Can you give some examples?
So look at anything. I mean, strategic thinking, people skills, personal organization, attention to detail, sheer hard work. Okay, 50 other things. All of a professional work ethic, the importance of keeping commitments, a service attitude, a simple quality like humility. Okay, which is simple, seemingly, but actually is a huge asset if you are humble. It gets you ahead in life when you're dealing with people. So, 50 things I learned. I recall my first boss, one of my early, well, not my first, but I had, my 3 years, I had maybe 6 or 7 different bosses, at different points in time. And then bosses, right? One of my early bosses, she was really great at ops. I was very poor at ops. I could think and talk and write strategically, but execution, which is about ops, right? My first time I was doing it, and I was not good at it. And she got me personally organized. Like, listen, you have to walk everywhere you go with a writing pad and a pen. And the office, the company will give us writing pads and pens. This is your writing pad. And I want you to make a job list in the morning before I come to office. So I'm coming at 9:15. You come here at 8:30. Make your job list for the day. Right? We sit and review it at 9:30. Then you start your day. Come back to me in the middle of the day for an update on what you achieved, what you not achieved, what the problems are, and we'll try and fix them. And then in the evening before I leave at 6:30 or 7, you do a final review, and next day same thing. And any meeting, you take notes. If I catch you coming to a meeting without a pad and pen, not taking notes, I'll throw you out of the meeting. Right? And I think that kind of discipline, that kind of rigor, straightened me out. Right? And it's that kind of discipline and rigor which I got in the first 3 years. And that stayed with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And that helped.
Right. I can resonate with this very well. I got this advice from Aditya Birla Group's CFO, Mr. Sushil Agarwal, where I was interviewing him for my podcast, and he mentioned that the chairman of ABG, Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla, gave him one piece of advice that सुशील जी आप लिख लो जो भी आपके दिमाग में आएगा, you just have to write it down on a piece of paper or a diary, otherwise you will miss out in the future and all. And from that day I've been writing down all my thoughts, all my ideas and all on a piece of paper. That helps to structure also before any meeting. So that piece of advice, I think it's very underrated again, but it helps a lot to structure your
No.
thinking.
I mean, what have you done for this podcast?
Yeah.
You have got this piece of paper here with this list.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously you've done enough painstaking research, and you had I think, able assistant perhaps to do this for you, and that's what is keeping this conversation going.
Yeah.
Because you're not talking randomly.
Right.
So being organized is, I think, a huge asset in life.
Right. Did you ever have tough bosses, those 6-7 bosses out of which anyone
Well,
was tough?
we had tough
And you
bosses,
recall any
but in
experience?
hindsight, they were all good bosses. They may have been tough at that time,
Yeah.
but they were tough for a reason. I was perhaps messing up, and they were tough. At that time, if somebody was not tough and was let me be, perhaps that would not been a good thing for me. So they wouldn't be doing me any favors by being nice to me when they should have been tough.
Do you think tough bosses make you a stronger, better person and help you in your career?
See, there are tough bosses, and there are unreasonable tough bosses. Right? I think it's important to be a tough boss when toughness is required. I think an unreasonable tough boss is unreasonable.
Right. And any specific incident or experience you have of?
Actually,
a tough
I'm very
boss?
fortunate that all my bosses, whether tough or not tough, were all very good bosses.
That. Right.
And that's what the great thing about a place like Lintas was. There was some seriously talented people there who were very good at their work. And they taught me a lot.
Got it. And then when did you decide to go for IIM Ahmedabad?
That was
and
the
how did
plan.
you decide?
That was the plan.
Okay, that was all.
That was my plan before I joined.
Got it. And then you gave your CAT, you gave appeared for IIM Ahmedabad.
Well, I also applied to the US for business school. I had written the GMAT when I was in college. I got a couple of admissions, but no scholarship.
Which universities were these?
I forget. They were not well-known universities. I had not applied to the best university because I knew they would not give me a scholarship. I got a very good GMAT score.
What was the score?
99 plus.
Oh, wow.
Okay, but that wasn't good enough to get me a scholarship, even from the lesser-known business schools. And so I didn't go. And it was fine. I was very happy to be in India and do my. So see, I was clear that if I went to the US, I would still come back here, and therefore I could not afford to pay for my MBA because then I would not be able to. I would have to work there to recover the money, and not be able to come back. So therefore, I did not want to go to any place that didn't give me a scholarship. And so I applied to the US and I applied to India and
Got into IIM Ahmedabad.
Yeah.
So before IIM Ahmedabad, did you have any entrepreneurial stint, like a small entrepreneurial stint or something?
No, I just worked for 3 years in Lintas and that's it.
Got it. Fair. Let's talk about your experience at IIM Ahmedabad as well. Those 2 years, we've got to know that you graduated from IIM Ahmedabad in 1989, and that is called as the most entrepreneurial batch as well. How did those 2 years shape your personality, and what are like some of the most memorable incidences from those 2 years?
I think from IIM Ahmedabad, what I gained was once again a certain work ethic. I got that in Lintas, but that got further strengthened there. IIM Ahmedabad again. Deadlines are sacrosanct. Right? If you have to submit a particular report or case analysis by X time, X date, that's it. Zero leniency. So the academic pressure and the competition was high. So you pushed yourself. And because you pushed yourself, you learned a little bit more maybe. Right? A lot of the work was in collaboration with other students in study groups. So you did 3 hours of class, but then you did, 21 hours of other stuff, right? With your classmates in study groups. I think that helped a lot. I think the case method, where you did not discuss any theory in class. You read your theory, you read the case, you tried to analyze the case yourself, and then came to class and discussed it. That's useful because The class started when the readings finished. You did not discuss the reading in class. Right? That was a useful way of studying, I thought. So in a business school, you learn pick up whatever you pick up. You can be put in 3 buckets: knowledge, skills, and attitude. And I think on all 3, IIM-A scored very high and still does. Quite simply because it's a tough program where there are a few hundred very bright people. I remember, so we had this guy in our batch. So personal computers had just come in. This is 87. Personal computers came into IIM only in 85 or 86. So we were being taught DBase 3. DBase 3 was a database, like MS Access. That time there was no Windows. We used to use MS-DOS. It was a database software. In those days, the grades you got were made public. Now it's not. It would be put up on the notice board. Every quiz, every exam, who got what grade. And this guy made it a point to practice DBase 3. He would take all the grades of the entire batch in every quiz, and by the evening, dump it on this database and calculate the GPA of every student and then rank it, and he'd know everybody's rank real time. Real time is by the evening of that day. And this would add to the trauma, the stress, the tension. So I recall in first year midterm, first term, midterm, I was walking back in the afternoon to my dorm with a friend after having tea in the mess, afternoon tea, 4 baje. And this guy was going to the mess to have his tea. He saw me. And he saw 2 of us. Your rank is 99, your rank is 103. I was 103. In a class of 175. Okay? And, I recall thinking, he says, man, I've never been in a place where there are 102 people smarter than me. Right? And I had been taking it easy after 3 years of working in Lintas. I said, I can coast for a while. And so I had not been studying that hard. But this sort of incident shocked me. I said, okay, I got to start studying. So that is one memorable moment for me, the realization that there are so many smart people in one place. People are smarter than me. That was a humbling experience. That ek jagah mein, getting there are more than 100 people smarter than me. I'm in the bottom 50% of the class academically. That for me was a rude shock. And after that I woke up and began to study.
Got it. Very interesting. I think this this person who was taking all the grades and all, I mean, that's very fascinating. After taking the grades from the database and telling everyone what are the ranks and all, it would motivate someone like you to just study harder and then score better. Otherwise, it would have been difficult. But then at IIM Ahmedabad, I also researched that you did not sit for placements because you already had a job offer. You had applied at a company, and then you helped the placement coordinator as well. What are some insights that you got from this experience?
So
business.
So in those days at IIM-A and other IIMs also, companies would only come to hire management trainees, no lateral hires, right? Which basically meant that if you had prior work experience and you went through placement, companies would essentially offer you a job as a trainee again and say, start from the bottom, never mind your prior work ex. Now I had 3 years of experience in advertising, which I felt is very relevant if I wanted a job in either advertising or consumer marketing, which is what I wanted. And I said, I don't want to write off my 3 years experience. So let me go outside of placement and find a job. Now, placement rules allowed you to apply directly to companies that were not coming to campus. So there was a company called HMM, which is now called GlaxoSmithKline, the company that used to manufacture Horlicks, Brill Cream, Boost, Eno, Marmite, Lucozade. I mean, those brands, it was that company. Okay, headquartered in Delhi. So I wrote to them and I said, "This is my CV. If you have a vacancy, at a suitable level, I would be very happy to explore and meet you and talk." And say, I got an interview call. I came to Delhi for a day, got interviewed, got the job offer, and went back to campus. And I went and told the placement chair, "So I'm dropping out of placement because I've got my job." And he said, "I hope you haven't broken any rules." I said, No, this company's not coming to campus. The list is company's coming, so I've got a job. And why did you do this? Because I said I didn't want to join at the bottom, and I got a job as a product executive. So I was happy that I didn't write off my work experience. And so I didn't go through placement. And the placement chair, who was a Professor Srinivas Rao, a legendary professor, he told me, "Very good. I want you to volunteer to help me in placement because I need help." I said, "Absolutely, sir. Tell me what to do." So there were 3 or 4 people who were not going through placement. There were 3 others who were writing the civil services exam. What the institute had said was, if you're writing the civil services exam, you can defer placement. You can take placement of the next year's batch. And this year, because we encourage people joining the government, is what the institute said. So there were 3 or 4 others who were also volunteering like me. So the job was basically a concierge kind of service, that the recruitment managers from the companies will come to campus, you will meet them at the gate. The flight will land, there'll be airport institute car picking them up, and they will come to the institute and you meet them at the gate. And you escort them to the interview room. You make sure tea, coffee, biscuits are being served. You make sure that the students who applied are lining up as per the order that they are supposed to at the right time, and the interviews are happening. 1 o'clock, take them for lunch. 2 o'clock, come back and continue the interviews, and so on. And then once it's done, take them to the placement office. They'll say who's got a job, who hasn't. And you show them what to get in the car, and they will go to the airport. Tata bye bye. So that was the job. So I was doing that. Now that year, what happened was that there were 4 companies in day 1. This is day 1 of placement. There were 4 companies. Hindustan Lever, Citibank, Bank of America, and Procter & Gamble. Now these are companies decided by student voting. So the most popular companies are called on day 1. This is 89. This is pre-liberalization. So no McKinsey, no Bain, no BCG, no Morgan Stanley, no Goldman Sachs, nothing. Right? Those companies are not present in India. Okay. So these are 4 hottest companies. Now, all interviews were happening in Dorm 2 basement. Dorm 2 basement had 10 rooms, student rooms, dorm rooms, and they were all vacated, and a table, chairs were put for interviews to happen. Citibank had come with 8 interviewers, so they were running 4 panels. Lever had come with 4 interviews, running 2 panels. P&G was running 2 panels or 1 panel, and Bank-M was running 1 or 2 panels, 2 panels maybe. So Citibank had the most panels and therefore the highest ability to interview quickly. 4 panels. The Lever head of HR who was there, now these are all alumni who are interviewing because companies send alumni to interview. So the Lever head of HR who was there, also an alumnus, he got worried that Citibank will interview people faster than us. They will make the final offer. People sign accepted, drop out of placement, would not even come for a final interview. He got worried. So the placement rules were that you could get up to 2 job offers. Once you get 2 job offers, you're out of placement. You can't go for more interviews. If you accept any job offer, you're out of placement. You can hold on to a job offer for 48 hours, after which you have to decide yes or no. So those are the rules, very simple. The Lever guy, if he liked a person across the table, he moved from room to room. Jo pasand aaya aadmi, or boy or girl, he would simply say, here's a job offer across the table, sign accepted. drop out of your Citibank interview and walk with me to a placement office and say, I've dropped out. Otherwise, I'm telling up later. There's no offer for you. Right? Now, this is totally against placement rules. And this threw the whole placement system out of tizzy, out of gear, disrupted. Because you're not allowed to do this. Okay?
And it was the first time happening in 1989, not before that.
Okay. No, it's against the rules, right? You can't do this. So, some people signed under duress. Some people signed anyway because they were the first choice. One guy refused to sign. Said, I am not signing under duress. Okay? And one or two guys said, sir, I'm just going to Loo. And ran away and did not come back. Okay? Okay. So they were just buying time. Citibank was the first choice, and they would take lever only if Citibank said no. Right? And the Citibank guys found out, and they stormed into the lever rooms. Right? And they were screaming and shouting, and they almost came to blows. Now, they're all grown up, senior managers, all alumni, and I'm seeing all this happening. Right? And from this, I got our first product idea. That if the phrase war for talent had probably not been coined then, but I saw it firsthand. This is war for talent. Right? And I said to myself that if grown men can behave like this, responsible managers, senior managers in large multinational corporations, fighting for talent, then if somebody were to launch a salary survey of what companies are offering fresh MBAs on campuses of the IIMs and price it reasonably, that survey would sell. This is the first product we need. And the idea came from that customer insight, that I saw Lever and Citi fighting.
Got it.
Right? So, yeah, that's where InfoEdge started.
Very interesting. And this survey which you did, so like you figured out that people would be ready to pay salaries of different companies, salaries offered by different companies. So
for that data, yeah.
Yeah. So how did you start then, and like how did it go after that?
No, so I joined my company, HMM. A year later, we did this.
No, okay.
And I quit my job, a friend and I.
Got it. So you had already joined GlaxoSmithKline, which was earlier called as HMM, and then this was the insight which you did it after 1 year.
Yeah.
What was the salary at GlaxoSmithKline? Like how much was the jump from the earlier 1,500 a month?
No, so I'll tell you. The average salary in my IIM-A class was 3,800 rupees a month.
Okay.
But because I joined HMM not as a trainee, I joined as a junior manager, I was getting about 4,500-5,000 rupees a month when I joined them. When I quit, I was getting about 6,500 a month.
Got it. Would this be the highest package in your batch? 4,500-5,000 a month?
No.
Okay.
So Citibank was paying 5,500 a month. So the foreign banks were paying more. Companies like Maruti, public sector companies, came and they were paying even more because they were not hiring people as trainees, they were hiring people as managers. Okay, they were paying 6,000 a month. Roughly that. HSBC came, did not come to placement. Came to Kama Hotel in Ahmedabad and put up notices on the notice board in IIM-A that we are here, we're not coming to placement because we have a global schedule of making offers and that does not coincide with the IIM-A placement season. And they came before placement season. And our salary offer is 10,500 a month.
Wow.
Which was a princely sum of money then.
Yeah. This would be the highest.
That's the highest. It just be the highest.
And
but that was not through placement. I think 1 or 2 people got it.
Okay. Wow, that's lovely. And then, so you worked for another year at GlaxoSmithKline, and then how did you decide to quit your job and take a plunge into entrepreneurship? Because this is a handsome sum of money.
So I wanted to do that for a long, long time, and I would keep thinking about it, and I never have the guts. Go to middle class government officer's son. I want that monthly salary check. This covers. What what happened was, what pushed me over the edge. So HMM was a company that was run by committee. So on the first of every month, there would be the sales committee meeting. Second of every month, there'll be the purchase committee meeting. Third of every month, there'll be logistics committee meeting. Fourth of every month, there'll be a marketing committee meeting. Fifth, there would be a finance committee meeting. Sixth, there would be a management committee meeting. Now, who attended these meetings? All the CXOs, and then a couple of levels down in that function. So sales manager, sales director, a few salespeople in the sales committee meeting. And the agenda for each meeting would be that function. Now Horlicks was 88% of the company's turnover and 140% of the company's profit. That's the brand I was working on. What that meant was it was so important to the company that down the line, nobody was empowered. Because one mistake meant, 140% of company profit ka brand mistake nahi ho sakta. So there's zero empowerment down the line. Okay. So 6 months before I had joined, in one management committee meeting, somebody had a bright idea. And that says that, sir, Horlicks is a bottle pe label pe blue label with red border. Huh? Sir, in India, gold is valued. So why don't you put a half gold line between the red border and blue main label? You'll create a value perception, image badega, sale badega. Now, any fool can tell you it won't make a difference. Karna hai karo, nahi karna nahi karo yaar. Just take a call. Okay. But people said, well, it's too big a risk. Horlicks is 88% of company turnover, 140% of company profit. We can't take a risk. So let us do a test market of the new label in one city. Okay. Which city? Well, Tamil Nadu is the most important market for Horlicks. 26% of all India sales come from Tamil Nadu. So we should do in Tamil Nadu. But we should not risk the most important city, which is Madras. Now Chennai, then Madras. We should do it in the next level city, Madurai. Okay. So nine labels chapege, and they were put in the Madurai market. And then people forgot about it. I joined the company 6 months later. I didn't know about this. 6 months after I joined, somebody woke up, the CMD, in one of the meetings, and said, boss, what happened to the test market? Now, everybody forgotten about it. So the head of marketing, all panicked because they'd forgotten about it. They were looking foolish. So they came out of the room for 2 minutes in a tizzy. What happened to test market? I said, what test market? No, they were test market, new label, Madurai. You don't know? I said, no. How don't you know? First of all, they bit my head off. So then they said, okay, you're flying to Madras tonight. Okay, and you're going to Madurai. And I said, don't be silly. I've got a chocolate Horlicks launch in 2 weeks' time. If for 1 year you've had this new label Madurai, if you have it for 2 more months, it won't make a difference. No, you have to go tonight. So I said, are you crazy? I've got a chocolate Horlicks launch in 2 weeks' time. I can't go to Madurai. There's too much work. I said, no, you have to go. So anyway, I went home, packed my bag, booked a ticket, and I went that evening to London and Madras at night and went straight from there to the bus station to catch the overnight bus to Madurai. So it was non-AC Tamil Nadu State Road Transportation Corporation bus, state SRTC bus. In October in Madras was like hot, humid, dusty. And I was bouncing around in the back of this bus, unable to sleep. Anyway, I got through the night. I changed inside the bus before people woke up. And I couldn't either bathe or shave. I just washed my face at the public tap at the bus station in Madurai. And I went and visited the market with the local salesperson. Now, in Madurai, in 1989, October, there was no way they knew English, the shopkeepers. There was no way I could speak Hindi because it won't work in Madras, and it would also generate some hostility perhaps. So walking with me was the local sales guy, and I was speaking to him in English, and he was translating in Tamil and speaking to the shopkeeper. And I was saying, okay, this is the old label, that's the new label. They hadn't even noticed. And they would laugh at me and say, you come from Delhi to ask this silly question? And I went from shop to shop, and same response. And I'm saying to myself that, I went to IIM Ahmedabad for this. So finally, after 20 or 30 shops, by 11 o'clock, I told the guy, listen, I'm done. My work is done. My mother had said, if you're going to Madurai, beta, you go and visit the temple. So now I want to visit the temple. So I went to temple, did parikrama, prasad, chadawa, all that. Came away, got the prasad. At least my mother will be happy. I caught the night train to Madras. Next morning I was in Madras. I checked into a hotel, I shaved, I showered, went to the local office, met the regional manager, then caught the evening or late afternoon flight to Delhi. Next day I was back in Delhi, and I wrote a report saying test market wildly successful, currently extend label nationally. And I was saying that, look, my existence is futile if I went to IIM Ahmedabad to do this work. When any fool knows that you can introduce the label, it won't make a difference. You can not introduce the label, it won't make a difference. And I said, I have to just get out of here. Right? And it took me a year more to get out. Because I kept thinking, should I not? And I was bothered by, once again, many existential questions. Just like after IIT, after school, got to IIT, should I go, should I not go? After college, getting into IIM Calcutta, should I go, should I not go? This is the third existential crisis for me. Should I quit, should I not quit? And the more I thought about it, I realized that, look, I don't want this life. I don't want to be a professional manager in a large multinational corporation trying to rise up the ranks. My future was predictable. I knew that if I did a reasonable job and I spent 3 years, I'd move from this desk in the open hall to that desk in the 4-seater cabin. 5 years there, I could move to a single cabin. Another 10 years, and I could move to head of marketing, right? Or possibly, maybe even CEO somewhere else. And I said to myself, I'm 25 or 26. If retirement is 58, if I stay here for 33 years and I retire, and what will I look back and what will I have to show for it? What will people say? Yeah, he sold a lot of holics. And somehow that didn't seem to excite me. And I figured that me and my friends and my colleagues, we are all chasing what I thought were the wrong variables. If my car was 1 foot longer than yours, I was doing better than you. If my house was here and not there, 1 kilometer away in a different neighborhood, I was doing better than I was earlier, perhaps better than you. If I had 1 extra bedroom in my house, I was doing better than you. I said, we are all chasing the wrong metrics. Around that time, this culture of car loans, house loans was coming in. And I said to myself that if I take a loan for a car or a house, I'll be a prisoner of my EMI. As it is, in my head, I was a prisoner of my visiting card. I wanted that MNC logo. I was a prisoner of my salary check. I wanted that monthly salary check. Now I'll be a prisoner of my EMIs. So I'm not going to take a loan. I'm not getting down this track further. Finally, I mustered up the courage to quit. I said, fine, I'll do without a MNC visiting card. I will try and do without a monthly salary check. All the other tougher things to do because there's well money. And that's why we're going to teach on weekends, to at least get some money every month, to substitute the monthly salary check. But it took me about a year after this epiphany on this trip to Madurai that to muster up the courage to quit, actually.
Right. And then once you decided to quit, then you also said in one of your interviews that you used to struggle for the first 7 years, get 2,000 to 3,000 per month, where you used to teach as a visiting faculty, as you said, at IIMT Ghaziabad. So
IIT
you were
Ghaziabad,
able
Time
to.
School of Marketing. I took a few lectures at IIM Ahmedabad when I was lucky, but there was more for, nostalgia value, alma mater, some prestige value. I never got a full course at IIM Ahmedabad. I taught at IMS MBA entrance classes. I taught the contact program, where it was that time a correspondence course, distance learning. But there were some contact classes. I took that for a while. So I used to teach whenever and wherever I got an opportunity. But my steadiest teaching was at IIT Ghaziabad, where I would take full courses every time.
Got it. And you didn't know, you didn't have the knowledge, you didn't have the knowledge of these courses. You learned it by yourself
Well,
and
no,
then taught,
no,
right?
no. So the first course I didn't have. So actually, what happened? A former colleague of mine in HMM, a guy called Prasad Nayak, he wanted to quit and go to the US to do his PhD in marketing. So his former prof from IIM Calcutta had taken over as director of IIT Ghaziabad. So he went to meet him and said, listen, I want to do a PhD. So to strengthen my application, if I can teach for a year as visiting faculty, it'll help me in my application. So the guy said, sure thing, you come and you teach consumer behavior. So Prasad Nayak was teaching consumer behavior, and he was a friend of mine from HMM. And I was quitting, and I told him that, listen, you've got this teaching gig going. I also want to teach, because I want to quit my job and be an entrepreneur, and I can do with $2,500 a month, because I have no money otherwise. And he said, sure thing, give me your CV, and carry your CV with you, and we'll go to IIMT Ghaziabad. So I asked him, I want to teach, which course can I teach? And yeah, you can teach any course. I'll talk to my prof, whatever he's a good guy. I can tell him that you're a good guy and he should look at you favorably. So I said, listen, let's position myself for a particular course. You can't just go and say, generally, I'll teach any course. You won't give it to me. So I said, what is the course taught worst in marketing last year? So he said, unhesitatingly, marketing in service industries. So, and I said, why was it taught so badly? He said, that's because the visiting faculty taking it was transferred to Bombay, so he could not complete the course. So they had to abandon the course halfway, and they merged the batch there with my course, and I had to double the credits of consumer behavior to make up for the lost credit there. So there's no faculty, there's a hole over there, and the course is there in the prospectus. So I said, great. Now, marketing in service industries was not a course taught anywhere else in the country in 1990. Not at IIM, not in any of the IIMs, nowhere. This is a unique course at IIT Ghaziabad. So I didn't know much about it, but I went batting on the front foot, and he took me to meet the director of IIT Ghaziabad, Professor Sharat Chandra, who was ex-IIM Calcutta, and I moved here. And he introduced me. I looked at my CV. He says, this is, you're just 1989 batch. It says, less than 2 years experience after MBA. So I said, 3 years experience with that. He quizzed me. Then he says, tell me about your family. So I told my brother also went to IIM Ahmedabad, and he's now a prof at UCLA. Acha, your brother's a professor. So you're from professor's family. Okay, you can teach. Did Professor Mote teach you? No, Professor Mote was a legendary IIM-A prof. But he had retired just before I joined IIM-A. I said, actually, no, sir. He retired 2 months before I joined IIM-A. But he taught my brother. Oh, Mote taught your brother? You must be okay. And he gave me the course. Now, I knew nothing about marketing service industries. So I scrambled. I went to IIM-A by train, second class, non-AC, berth se gaya main. Stayed in the dorm, right? Went to the library, and there was enough material there in marketing service industries. HBR articles, this Journal of Marketing Research, a few textbooks, a few case studies, this, that. And उन सब की मैंने कॉपी ले आया मैं, and I noted down, and I said I'll order them from the US. Then I spoke to my brother on the phone. I said I want material marketing service industries. और ये है, they're all these Harvard cases, they said. So he bought all this stuff and sent it to me. Right? And I found a couple of textbooks which had all these cases and the theory. So I told the IIT Calcutta library, to order copies of these books. I want the library stocked. They ordered it, किताबें आ गई. And in the 2-3 months that I had, I prepared thoroughly. And I was able to go and teach. And the course was a success, and everybody was happy, and they gave me great feedback. Right? So, you put in the effort, you can make it work.
Yeah, I think identifying the need gap is very critical here, the way you did it. And that is as good as, like, even for a startup to succeed, this is like one of the key lessons. Need gap is like marketing professor was not there, and then that's how you got into that. So that is pretty fascinating. And you also...
So then I taught at IIT Calcutta, the visiting faculty for 6 years.
Wow, 6 years.
And I would take a course every term. So 12 courses, Right,
and this was all weekends, right?
So some weekdays, afternoon, evening, I could figure it out,
And in these 6 years, like, you were teaching at IIT Ghaziabad, and then how was the journey for all the businesses? Like, in those 6 years, what all you did apart from teaching at IIT Ghaziabad?
Salary surveys, databases, some training and consulting, some corporate training, all of that. And finally, in 97, we launched Naukri. So 15-20 चीजें की हमने. I was a journalist for a while. I wrote a couple of books.
Oh, wow.
On job hunting, careers, whatever.
Okay. Got it. Is there anything which you launched and you shut it down after a point in time in this time frame?
There's several things which we did, which we didn't do a second time. But we never lost money in any, simply because our costs were so low.
Got it.
But it didn't become big or interesting, so we didn't pursue it.
Got it. But any specific mistakes or any specific learnings from those experiences which you recall?
In hindsight, yeah. At that time, no. Basically, if you're solving an unsolved problem, if you've got a customer insight about an unsolved problem, about a need gap, and you fill it, it will work. So the salary survey was done on that basis. My IMT course was done on that basis. The trademarks database was done on that basis. Naukri was done on that basis. So wherever we were first mover at solving an unsolved problem, we succeeded.
Yeah. Got it. That's very interesting advice for all the aspiring entrepreneurs. Do you advise something similar to the youth of India today?
I'd say do what it takes, right? But if you want to do a startup, you really can't do it 9 to 5, 5 days a week. I mean, this whole thing of work-life balance, I think as a startup entrepreneur, you have to, forget about that for a while if you want to succeed.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Right.
So, Mr. Narendra Modi has been criticized for 70 hour week. When I first read it, I said, 70 घंटे तो कम है. And then I read कि सब लोग उसको निंदा कर रहे हैं. And I said, man, what is wrong with people? तो करना पड़ेगा. As a startup founder, if you want to succeed, तो करना पड़ेगा.
Right. 70 का आप बोलोगे 80, 90 होना चाहिए.
Well, if you work 7 days a week and you work, say, 12 hours a day,
84
यही हो गया.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, I mean, in startups, it's not possible to do like a 9 to 5, 5 days a week and all. Otherwise, you don't love your problem or you're not passionate about it.
Sagar Dharani Wamamo put it beautifully. And I was speaking to once. He said, sir, in startups, there's no work-life balance. There's only work-life integration.
Yeah, that's a very, very powerful saying. So during the 2000 Olympics, you also got 8,000 seconds of TV time advertising for 3.5 lakh rupees for InfoEdge. So can you also tell us about this story and its impact? How did it help?
So we had raised venture capital, April 2000. Olympics happened, I think, that summer. So we had done a deal. So there was a concessionaire who had got the rights for the Olympics, a company, right? So he came and sold us a package for 3.5 lakhs. Bought it. That package was, I think, 1,000 seconds, right? However, to provide a demonstration effect to other advertisers, he kept running our ads, saying, और लोग आएंगे, because they're seeing these ads, saying, you can look at this company is advertising so much. So we actually got a great deal because we got 8,000 seconds when we had paid for 1,000 or 2,000. I forget exactly how much. And we never asked for extra. He just gave it to us. That was a fantastic lucky break. It made a huge difference. That was on Doordarshan.
Got it. And like it really helped you gain a lot of traffic. And,
Yeah. The next big one was the Hari Sadhu ad.
Okay.
Have you seen the Hari Sadhu ad?
No, not this.
Sir, report 1. Report 2. But sir,
Shut up!
Sir, hotel reservation desk on line 2.
Yes, I would like to book a table for 2.
Sure, sir.
Poolside.
Your name, sir?
Hari Sadhu.
What, sir?
Hari Sadhu.
sir, may I? Yes, write down Hari Sadhu. H for Hitler, A for arrogant, R for rascal, I for idiot. That's right. Now write Sadhu. S for...
Shameless?
So, as far as advertising is concerned, that was a lucky break. We advertised minimally. We didn't have money. We were loss making for a while. But then when we became profitable again, we advertised on TV. And I think the Hari Sadhu commercial really lifted us. So that commercial also based on insight. Now, you see, this was not my doing. There was Hitesh was heading marketing, and Aisha Kapoor was marketing manager. So on our side, there were these two. And on the agency side, there was Ulka, FCB Ulka. And there was a creative team there. And they kind of figured that to do a good TV commercial, you've got to stand out of clutter. One way of standing out of clutter is humor. Right? So you need a humorous commercial. At the same time, the viewer has to emotionally connect with that commercial. Right? And emotions come from human relationships. So the creative director came and told us there are 3 big relationships. Number one is in India. Number one is the mother-son relationship. That's been done to death in the Hindi movies saying Ma. Okay, a mother-son relationship. Then at home there's a big relationship which is the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship, Saas Bahu, which has been done to death in the Saas Bahu serials. The third big relationship is a boss-subordinate relationship, which happens in office. Now, around this time, The Economist magazine had done a survey on why people quit jobs. They had collaborated with Egon Zehnder, and a survey, or a 16-page survey on why people quit jobs. Now, in that survey, one of the findings was that people leave bad bosses, they don't leave companies. So afterwards, you may justify saying, I quit my job for better salary, better challenge, bigger job, more career prospects. But they started looking because they had an unpleasant interaction with the bad boss. So the team said, there's something here. And they produced a funny commercial about an interaction with a bad boss, which is what the Hari Sadhu commercial was. And it really worked. So this, and full marks to FCB Ulka and the team there, and full marks to our own team, Hitesh and Aisha, for going with this commercial. And it really worked. But this is after we became profitable. I think the tough bit was that, we bootstrapped Naukri for 3 years, 97 to 2000. And then we raised venture capital in April 2000.
From ICICI Ventures.
ICICI Venture. So, we launched Naukri in April 97, right? Basically what happened was that when I was in HMM, right, I used to observe that when the office copy of Business India would come in, all my colleagues would greet us from the back. The junior team would sit in an open hall so I could observe my colleagues. Because there were 35 to 40 pages of appointment ads at the back of Business India. and they would always read the appointment ads first. Sometimes they won't even read the articles and pass on the magazine. And then they would discuss, there's a job going here, they're not looking for a job, they're not going to apply, but they're discussing. And I concluded that jobs are a high interest category of information. The second thing that has to happen was that every week, 2 or 3 different headhunters would call up and try and headhunt one or the other of my colleagues, because there were 8-10 people there from the IIMs. So FMCG, MNC, marketing, good talent pool, try and headhunt. They'd call up, and every time I could hear the conversation. Every time it was a different headhunter with a different job in a different company, and these jobs had not been advertised in print. So I figured what appears in print is the tip of the iceberg. There's a much larger market below the surface. Huge database of jobs. So if somebody were to aggregate it and keep it current, it would be a powerful product, because jobs are a high interest category. Now, this is 1990. I don't know what to do with this insight. File and forget. Okay, in 92, the Department of Telecom put out an ad in Delhi, I think TOI or HT, a big ad, saying we are launching a video text service. Now, video text was a service where it was running in Paris. It's pre-internet. It was running in Paris and was successful. So they basically said, we'll have a computer in a telephone exchange in Delhi. On that computer, there will be lots of databases and information. And the public, on payment of a fee, can access this information at 50 terminals around the city. We want to launch a service. So they advertise for PIPs, private information providers, people who own and maintain these databases. So I looked at the ad and I said, yeah, why not just take all the job ads from all the papers around the country and put it up here, see what happens. So we applied, we got selected, we went for meetings, began the work, wrote out the full screens and navigation and all that. And 6 months later, the government cancelled the project, saying budget cancelled ho gaya. But we had the full Naukri concept ready. 92, 93, we didn't know what to do with it. File and forget. 96, when I saw the internet for the first time, I read this concept and I said, let's launch this. We launched it in 97. And that's how Naukri came to pass. Customer insight. I observed people reading Business India from the back. Naukri launched, first year revenue, 2.5 lakh rupees. First 6 months was free, right? One day I had a call on the landline from a guy who says, I am calling from so-and-so company in Pune. It is a mid-sized auto components company. I forget the name. I'm the CEO. I had advertised in the papers earlier. You've taken my jobs. I got a good response. I've got 6 jobs now. I've not advertised. If I send them to you, will you put them up? And I said, yeah. But you have to pay. How much? And I hadn't thought of it. So मेरे मुंह से निकल गया 350 rupees per job. So that's 2,100 rupees for 6 jobs. And I said, sure thing, I'm sending the payment along with the jobs. I'm couriering it. And 3 days later it came. We got our first sale. And 350 rupees a job listing remained the price for a single job listing on Naukri for the next 10 years. And it's just something I had said to him on the spur of the moment. And then we mailed a lot of HR managers to letters, kind of sell, and sales began to happen. Through direct mail, they send us checks, and we'd put the jobs up and bank the checks. First, 97, 98, first sales were 2.5 lakh rupees. Next year, 18 lakhs. Now, this thing was jumping 7x in the first year. Small base, but still 7x. That's when he said, hey, we are an internet company now. Stop everything else. Stopped everything else. No more salary surveys, no more other databases, no teaching, no training. Stop everything. We are an internet company. Life went on, and around mid-99, I'm still in a Pioneer, and I'm still here. I began to get calls from venture capitalists. I did not know what venture capital was. Maybe please invest in your company. And I was baffled because nobody in my life had called me to give me money, ever. So I went for a few meetings, discovered what venture capital was, discovered .com valuations, discovered what's going on in the US. All that I learned. And then eventually I said no to the venture capital because I was a little afraid of the way they were talking. it looked a bit reckless to me. And so मैंने मना कर दिया. They were saying some crazy talk. We'll give you $2 million for 25% of the company. And $2 million is 8 crore rupees then. And I'm listening to the guy and across the table, and my mind is frozen because I'm trying to figure out what is $2 million in rupees and how many zeros, and I kind of figured it's 8 crore rupees. I said 8 crores. Our turnover then was 2 lakhs a month, 24 lakhs run rate, 8 crore rupees. Okay, and the only thing I could think of was how many pizzas can I buy in rulers for 8 crore rupees, and I couldn't do the math. Okay. And then I tell him, but I think it's very good you give me 8 crore rupees, but what will you do with the money? He said, it's very simple. You will spend on advertising. That will build brand. That's a barrier to entry. Then 6 months from now, you will raise twice the money at 4 times the valuation. And 1 year from now, we'll list you on NASDAQ. Now, I didn't know what NASDAQ was. I had a vague notion that it was something to do in the US, something in New York, some stock market thingy. But I heard of NYSE, I never heard of NASDAQ. I'm thinking to myself, this guy is crazy. How much we are running out of my house, the company, in East Delhi, which is not a very fashionable district, neighborhood. बिजली नहीं आती है 3-4 hours a day, power would go. और जब आती है तो 160 voltage होता है. We are barely able to sort of update the site twice a week. We don't even have a UPS or a power backup. ऐसे नहीं है. हम पहाड़गंज में नहीं लिस्ट कर सकते. कहाँ NASDAQ लिस्ट करेंगे? So the only thing I'd say was, listen, but I worked in advertising, I know. If you spend 8 crores in advertising, you will never get the money back. And right now we're breaking even. We'll end up making a loss. I say, this is the problem with you Indian entrepreneurs. You want to make a profit. Nobody makes a profit on the internet. It's a new economy, don't you know? You don't make a profit. You just raise more money. I said, this guy's crazy. So anyway, you got to be cool. The meeting is happening at a 5-star hotel where he's staying. Yeah. I said, okay, I'll come back to you. Thank you so much. I came back. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. 8 crore rupees. But eventually I said, no, we don't want the money. We'd rather be a small company. Thank you so much. We're not ready for it yet. I kind of figured that, this is my life's work. It's taken 10 years to come here. Next year, I know we can do 50-60 lakh turnover and I can take a 5 lakh rupee salary. And that is my limited ambition. If I 5 lakh tankha nikala hai saal ki, I'll regard myself as being financially successful. So we kept saying no. And then Jobs Ahead launched with a launch ad campaign, just twice annual turnover. They launched with a TV ad campaign on the India-Pakistan cricket series in Sharjah. And that's when he died of fright. And we said, man, what is this? We can't be a 50 lakh company and make a 5 lakh profit. We have to be a 5 crore company, make a 50 lakh profit pretty soon. And to get from orbit A to orbit B, we will need venture capital now, make a loss for 2 years, and then get there and make a profit. So we went back in the market. This time we had different investors. And we raised money from ICICI Venture because they would talk our lingo. They had no expectations of listing in NASDAQ in a year. They had no expectations of massive losses and 4x. Paise aur raise karenge. They said, yeah, we know India is long haul. Take your time, build the company.
Right.
And so we went to 4 investors. We got 3 term sheets. We went with ICICI Venture because they talked the most sense.
One of the investors mentioned that the price differentiation is 1:1,000, so the valuation would be 3 to 4 CR.
Yeah,
right?
so I went to 4 investors. 3 gave us a term sheet. The 4th guy said, you're a great salu, but you're making great sales pitch, but I will not invest in your company. I asked him why. He said, Dekho, what is the size of the print appointment ad market? I said, I don't know, maybe 400, 450 crores. Okay, what's the difference in a print ad and an ad on Naukri? I said, one is 1,000. So in that case, if you get 100% share, you will shrink the market to 40 lakhs or 50 lakhs. That's it. You're already at 36 lakhs, so you reach your maximum potential. So you can't devalue a company. The market won't let you. So therefore, I won't invest. That's okay.
It's his loss now.
Well, I mean, look, so it's kind of, see, when you're creating a new category, markets are hard to predict.
Yeah.
So if you look at the business plan we gave ICICI Venture, on which we got funding, we had said 4 years out, we'll do 12 crores turnover in the year. That was our best projection. Conservative, but I felt still ambitious. 4 years out, we did 84 crores. We were wrong by 7x.
7x, wow.
Okay? So when you're creating new categories and new markets are being formed, and there's restructuring in the market going on, it's kind of hard to predict where the market will take you. So we were also wrong. He was also wrong.
Yes. Very interesting. Naukri was launched on 1st April 1997. Right? So there were two other companies which were launched on 1st April, which is Make My Trip and India Mart. India Mart in 1996, 1st April, Make My Trip on 1st April 2000. Do you think I should incorporate my next company on 1st April?
Okay, so it's not a coincidence. And the answer is very simple, actually. So if you want to launch in Feb, March, right, you'll have to file a separate return for the first 2 months. The financial year ending is March 31st.
Yeah.
So you say, I may as well launch on April 1. So you can do all the work, but you launch on April 1 because you don't want to file one extra return, one more audit fee, just extra compliance and extra. So that's why 3 companies launched on 1st April, just to save cost and to save some effort. Okay, very rational reason, not a coincidence, not a superstition. Okay, so yeah, you can do 1st April, that's fine.
Yeah, that was on a lighter note. I mean, all of them are super successful, and I just saw 1st April on all 3 incorporations. So that's like a very good kind of metric as well. You talked about Hitesh Oberoi, right? And in one of your interviews from 2006, you said, and I quote, "I was rooted in Web 0.0, believing in pure text," said Hitesh Oberoi, whom you hired in 1999. And he convinced you to make the website more engaging. And he had originally come to you to ask for advice on whether he should join another .com company where he had one more interesting offer. So what did you see in him and how did you end up
So
hiring
I've
him?
known Hitesh for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, since he was born, in fact, because his mom is my cousin. Now, I have a large extended family, so, there will be 30, 40 people of that generation in the extended family. So he's not here because his mom is a cousin. He's here because he's very good. But I know him because his mom is my cousin. So he had come to me for advice. He was in Lever, and he had got this job offer in Bangalore. And he came and said, I'm in Lever, I'm a regional commercial manager of ice creams in Delhi, and I'm being sent to a factory, and all the action is in the big cities, and all my friends are joining .coms, and I'm missing out this whole wave, and I've got this offer, and what do you think? So it was an offer for a about to be started .com in Bangalore. So I spoke to him 2-3 hours. At the end of it, I told him, listen, why don't you join us instead? We'll give you a better deal. We'll give you in all ways, whether it's not in fixed salary so much initially, because at that time we not yet raised venture capital, but in terms of stock, in terms of hopefully a future. And he thought about it and he joined. Right? And that's how he came. And he came in without a role. So he said, what will I do? I said, you come in and you choose your job. Now, he had come in to do 2 things. One is, of course, work on Naukri and InfoEdge. The other was, we were going to launch a new website, which would be his, and he would launch it, and it was on sales promotions and things. That website did not get launched. right? So he came full time into Naukri, and he, came in as a co-promoter,
Right.
right? And after 2-3 weeks, he sort of said that you don't have a sales and marketing head. You're selling by direct mails, right? Why don't I look after that? I said, sure, choose your job. And he began to look after sales and marketing. And 2 months of that, and he came and said, listen, we're selling by direct mail. We're selling by direct mail. Why don't we get a few salespeople and put them out? By then, we had got venture capital. And we felt brave enough to say, yeah, let's hire a few salespeople. So he had 4 salespeople. They went out in the market and sold. And after 6 months, we discovered that they were breaking even on their own total cost and making money actually. So the average salesperson's cost was 22,000 rupees, fixed salary plus commission plus conveyance plus mobile phone bill plus depreciation on computer plus rent and air conditioning and all that. Was 22,000 rupees a month. And in about 4-5 months time, 6 months time, they were selling 50,000 rupees worth. So they were making a 28,000 rupee profit on their own total cost. And this number was headed north. And we said, hey, this is pretty cool. We had found what today we call a repeatable, profitable unit. And we said, let's expand the sales team in Delhi, in Bombay, in Bangalore, in all cities. And in 2 years' time, we had 241 salespeople across 11 cities. And we had grown 35x. So we are now 10 crores. And we were making 80 lakh profit. Although in the interim we made losses while the team was expanding. So that's what really saved the company, because the moment we had raised venture capital, the market melted down, the bubble burst. And we had no hope of getting any more money. And there was a point and then first the dot-com meltdown happened, and the IT meltdown happened, and 9/11 happened. So at that point in time, we had some 16 months money left with no hope of getting any more money. And our monthly salary bill was 4 times our collections from sales. At that time, we expanded the sales team and just sold our way out of troubles.
Right. So that was you hired Hitesh, and he's been instrumental in the success of
That's
these
right.
companies. Is there any framework you have before hiring these kind of A players where you ask certain questions to get something from them?
No, unfortunately, no. But we hired about 10 senior people around that time in various functions. Right? Of these, Hitesh worked out the best. Others also worked out. But Hitesh worked out as sales and marketing head. And the sales effort is what saved the company.
Like, also, you had mentioned that after visiting Hong Kong and Singapore, you decided that you don't want to list abroad. Why was that so, and what was the inference from these visits in these countries?
Well, actually, what had happened was that until June 2005, the law was that an Indian company could list anywhere, India, overseas, whatever. We began to look at an IPO in February 2005. Right? And that time we had a choice. We knew we'd get a higher valuation on NASDAQ. But we also felt that higher valuation we are getting today, we'll get in India 6 months from now because we are growing so fast. Of course, by that time, NASDAQ will be even higher. But we said to ourselves that, listen, we have to live with the listing, right? Today's valuation does not matter so much because we're not going to sell anyway. We want to run the company. And if there's an investor who wants to sell, he should not be deciding the market where we're listing because he's going to quit anyway. So the people who are going to stay should decide because they have to live with the listing.
Yeah.
And so we felt that the responsibilities of a US listing were very onerous in terms of audits, in terms of legal sign-offs, in terms of getting research coverage, investor conferences, investor roadshows all the time. We also felt if we list in India, our brand is known here. So we'll get more long-term support. But as it transpired, in June 2005, the government passed a new rule which said Indian company cannot list in an overseas market before it lists in India. So the decision was taken out of our hands. But we had very good reasons to not list in the US.
And would you advise current startup founders to not list?
So I think the decision is more or less taken because if you notice, about 20, 30, 40 startups have listed in India in the last 2 years, 3 years. Only one is listed in the US. There are very many more who have flipped overseas, but they can't list in the US because they've not yet achieved the benchmarks required of a company to list in terms of revenue, growth, profits.
Right.
They are much higher in the American markets.
Fair. And also, so like more than 90% of the unicorns have been born after 2014. Like there are 108 unicorns right now in India. And 2014 was the time when BJP government came into existence. You are like one of the startups, one of the rare unicorns which is existing since the last 3 decades. So you have seen a lot of governmental changes over the last 3 decades. So how has this government change transitioned over the last 3 decades? What's your thought?
No,
on
I
that?
think this government has done several good things. I'll start with the fund of funds for startups. I think that's a very good initiative because that is what seeded the Indian venture capital industry. You still get most risk capital from overseas, but you've got now a pretty robust base of Indian venture capitalists. I think that's important and the most important. I think what the government did with the UPI, that ecosystem, the payments ecosystem, I think that has been truly transformational for the Indian tech industries, internet industries, companies. I think what the government has done with, or what the telecom industry and the government, enabled by government policy, has done with mobile penetration. I think that has also been absolutely instrumental in helping companies to be created, which became useful and valuable. Right? So there are many, many things there.
So do you think the current startups in India have an advantage today as compared to startup back in 2000?
No. Each era is different. Each age is different. Right? All have their pluses and minuses. So when we started, there was no capital, there was no internet penetration, there was poor infrastructure, there was no market. So you could say that we were seriously challenged. But on the flip side, there was no competition. Today, markets are crowded. There's plenty of competition. But there's a much larger market. There's better availability of capital and talent. But there's more competition. So each era has challenges and opportunities.
Makes sense. And you also invested in companies like Zomato and Policy Bazaar. And I read in Money Control, you're sitting on 15x return on investment on these companies. This was back in 2022. Now the number would be slightly higher.
So we don't do the math. We don't sit and work out IRR and things.
Right.
See, so what we like to tell ourselves is that we are not in the business of earning IRR. We are in the business of funding entrepreneurs and startups that go on to become great companies. And sometimes we succeed, often we don't. But when we do succeed, or even half succeed, we earn an IRR that is a happy incidental outcome of trying to help founders build great companies.
Right.
Now, so did we count the IRR when we first invested in Zomato potential IRR? Answer is no. We didn't know. If you told us, it's now $20 million almost, maybe $19 million. If you told us in 2010, ये तो $20 million company बनेगी, I would say, are you insane? It's not possible. You just back very good teams doing interesting stuff, and you go in for the long run, long haul. Over time, they'll deliver.
Yeah. There are a lot of debates also which would keep happening between an investor and a founder regarding a lot of metrics. Can you give some examples of these and how do you tackle them?
So I think
Maybe with policy bazaar also matter if that has happened.
I think let's say Zomato. 2-3 types of discussion. One is how much capital to raise. We were always conservative. Zomato was always slightly more aggressive than management. We would say raise less money. They want to raise more money, right? The second was should they expand internationally? We were circumspect. They wanted to do it. Third was should they expand into food delivery? And we said don't do it, and they said we got to do it.
And that's worked out.
Yeah. So we have been right many times. However, ultimately it's the founder's call. And what has happened in Zomato is that the time when they were right, which is that we want to do food delivery, they were massively right. And it really worked.
Right. Any similar instance for policy bazaar?
It was our capital raise.
Right. Fair. And also you had...
But ultimately it's the founder's call,
Yeah.
not the investor's call. You can advise, you can suggest. The founder decides. Unless, of course, it's a bet the company stuff that will be suicidal if you go on. Then, you step in and you say you can't do this.
Right. And you mentioned in one of the interviews that you said no to investments in Ola, Flipkart, and Lenskart. So
Many companies.
Right. Do you have any regrets of that?
No. See, I've taken a very philosophical view of this, that you are constantly taking go, no-go decisions. Yes, no decisions. You'll say no to some very good companies. Or you'll say no to some companies but you want to become very good. Right? And that's fine. That's part of the game. As long as enough of the ones you said yes to succeed, you're doing all right.
What was the reason of saying no to
Flipkart? We used to have just one person. So I didn't meet the Flipkart founders. I was recommended Flipkart by one of our independent directors, Ashish Gupta, who was an angel in Flipkart. Take a look at this company. I looked at it and I told him, I don't know how they make a profit. I met Bhavish Ola and I said to her, I don't know how to make a profit. Lenskart, similar thing. I couldn't figure out how they make a profit. Now, on the case of the water possible, at least I could figure out, profit aise ban sakta hai. And for us, profit is important.
Companies having better cash flow, operating cash flows and profits, that would be a better...
Well, no, at the stage these companies were, there was no question of having operating cash flows. But the model you've got to study, and unit economics you've got to study and say, isse ban sakta hai, isse nahi ban sakta. Or it's a come chance hai. And you could get it wrong. We were wrong, but it's fine. As long as the ones we invested in have done well, we are okay.
Yeah, and I think Zomato and Policy Bazaar both have turned profitable in the previous quarter.
That's right. That's right.
Correct. You invest in a lot of startups. Everyone knows that. Do you also invest in stock markets, public equities? Is there a story behind that?
For a long time, I didn't. So when I was starting out, I had, when I was quitting my job, I had savings of 68,000 rupees, and roughly 1 year's salary, post-tax. And I was nervous. So what will happen when money runs out? The company can't pay me. What will happen? And so a friend of mine told me, now in those days, there were 21 stock exchanges. There were lots of stock exchanges. Each city had its own stock exchange. And there was no electronic trading. It was all outcry-based manual trading. There was no equity research being done. Nothing. So essentially, people would buy or sell shares based on what their friends told them.
Tip milta hai.
So a friend of mine told me, there's this company, called Bindal Agro.
Sorry, which company?
Bindal Agro. सुना कि bonus issue आएगा, तो price double होगा. So buy. I said, okay, price double होगा, so I'll have 2 years salary as in my bank account. So I went to a friend's father. I was 26 years old. I went to a friend's father, and he was a sub broker with a big broker. That's my uncle is like this. So now bonus issue. So I want to buy 66,000 rupees of Bindal Agro. I thought I'd keep 2,000 rupees. And मैं 66,000 के ले लूँगा. Double हो गया, fantastic. So he told me, बेटा अगर bonus issue आ रहा है, why don't you buy on forward बदला? Then you can make 10x. I said, yeah, that's even better. So I told him, ठीक है uncle, आप take this, I'll buy on badla. So he took 60,000 rupees as margin money. Now I learned the hard way that it's a bad idea to, if you're buying something on a rumor, A, you better buy at the beginning of the rumor. B, the rumor better catch on so that the price goes up. C, the rumor better be right. So I discovered the hard way that the price had already doubled. I didn't know. So I was buying at the end of the rumor.
It was priced in already.
Yeah. 2, the rumor was wrong.
Oh God.
So, okay. And after the price didn't double, it halved. Okay. So the guy called me after 1 week and said, beta, now we are square. So I was down to 2,000 rupees.
My God.
Okay. So that was in 1990. And I made up my mind that, listen, I'll never invest in the stock market in my life. I don't know how to. It's not my area of strength. I'll just run the company. And that's what I did in 2016, 17. Then I began to little bit invest in the stock market. My basic thing was that, we listed the company in 2006. Right? I'm running a listed company. Why am I afraid of the stock market? So maybe I can do some sensible investing. And that's what I began to do slowly.
Yeah. So you lost like what, 64,000 rupees?
66,000 rupees out of 68.
Okay, 60 all of them.
So basically 2,000 rupees I had left.
Okay. That was like that would have been like the worst financial mistake.
Yeah, but I didn't think about it much. I just went on with my work.
Yeah, and that's a handsome sum of money if we convert it today as well. But yeah, I mean, that's a pretty interesting story. I didn't know about this. And just talking about the Ashoka University as well, you're one of the founders of Ashoka University. And actually, by the way, I visited Ashoka University yesterday when I came to Sonipat. And trust me, I mean, I must like the infrastructure. I was just mind blown after looking at the infrastructure. So commendable. Firstly, like kudos to what you have built.
Well, there are 200 founders.
Right.
I'm just one of them.
Yeah.
So I think credit goes to everybody.
Yeah, everyone, of course. Like, I mean, everything is like so organized. And I was talking to students also. They are coming up with so many new ideas and initiatives as well. I was just very impressed. How did this idea come up, and what are your future plans for Ashoka University? As of now, it's a 25-acre campus. You're also expanding. So
yeah, we've got 75 acres more. So we're expanding the campus. No, the idea was first discussed in 2007. You see, I had chucked up IIT and been to Delhi University for 3 years. At the end of those 3 years, I thought, this could have been so much better academically. Delhi University, not Stephen. Stephen's very good, but DU. Simple things like there were only 3 colleges in Delhi University, but the syllabus will be completed in class. Miranda, LSR, both girls' colleges, and St. Stephen's. So, okay. The rest of the colleges, the syllabus will not be completed because either the students will go on strike or the teachers will go on strike or both. So classes would not be completed. And I said, how is this excellent? Okay. Anyway, not my problem. I had finished college, I had worked for 3 years, I had gone to IIM-A, I had worked for 2 years, I had become an entrepreneur, all those things. Around 2005-06, I bumped into somebody, a lady, who had been a year junior in college. And we had, I asked her, I bumped into her at a conference dinner. I asked her, so what are you doing? She says, I'm a lecturer in, I teach economics in DU college. And I said, kya padha rahe ho? She said, no, the syllabus has not changed in 1980. This is 2005, 25 saal. And I said, you mean the Soviet Union is broken up? China has become capitalist. Communism around the world is more or less over. There's been a new economic policy in 1991. You don't teach any of that? I said, no. I mean, I discussed it in class, but exam nahi aata hai. And I said, man, how does this work? Not my problem. Right? 2007, I went to Cambridge on a personal trip, and I spoke to somebody who told me that if you graduate from St. Stephen's College in economics, you come here into second year BA. So your 3 years is equal to our first year. I said, wow, how that works. And I came back to Delhi and I inquired, and I learned that if you run a BA from Cambridge or Oxford, you can teach in Delhi University as if you run MA over here. I said, okay, not my problem. But it became my problem in 2007 when St. Stephen's College announced that we are going to have 50% reservation. No problem. But there will be a gap of 35% between the cutoffs, between reserved and open categories. And that, the alumni felt, was compromising academic standards a bit too much. But we failed to persuade the college to change its policy. So that's when some of us mooted the idea that we need a new college or a new university. And that's when I went to Ashish Dhawan. And I said, how about it? And he said, okay. And then we went to Pramod Sinha. Then we went to Vineet Gupta and others. And that's how the group was formed. And then others joined.
And what are your future plans for Ashoka University?
No, I think, there are 7, 8 aspirations of Ashoka, which we began with. Number 1, we do liberal arts. We said the engineering problem is solved by and large. Our liberal arts and sciences has not been solved. So let's solve an unsolved problem. Second, we said that India follows the British system. Choose your subject and study it. The US system, which is do 6, 8 subjects in first year and then choose your major. So you get width. It's multidisciplinary. That may be better. Third, we said we want collective philanthropy. This thing will not belong to any one person. So there must be many, many contributors. And that's how it is globally. Fourth, we said it will be not for profit completely. Because if you're building a world-class university, the best profs will not join a for-profit university in the world. Fifth, we said it will be inclusive. There will be financial aid. And there are scholarships now for 60% of Ashoka students. Right? So there were 8, 9 aspirations of Ashoka, of which there are 5 or 6, and we are following that philosophy. We said it will be fully residential. It's an immersive experience.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how we're doing it.
Right. Yeah, I visited the residential hostel. RH, you call it RH 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, right.
I visited them. I mean, it was very, very impressive. Just like about your daily routine, so like how does a typical day in your life look like? How do you manage your time, morning to night?
Well, I wake up around 6:37, do some yoga. I have an instructor coming over. I then start work. The work is usually over the phone, WhatsApp, email, coordinating stuff. Right? Then I get into meetings. Meetings could be over Zoom. They could be, I go to 2 offices of ours, Noida or Gurgaon, depending on the schedule. So I go 2-3 days to Noida and then 2-3 days to Gurgaon. Yeah. And I don't stop work until work stops.
What is that time
Well,
usually?
typically 8:39 in the evening. So maybe it's a 12-hour day.
Got it. And after coming back, like just
I just have dinner, hang around, sleep.
And any specific me time you have in a day, like to spend with yourself?
Usually after work, I come back. Sometimes in the morning for half an hour, 45 minutes.
Got it. Fair. Very interesting, sir. Last question which I ask all the guests, this is a tricky one. if you were in the shoes of Kushal Lodha and if you were interviewing Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, what is that one question you'd like to ask him towards the end of the interview?
Well, I'd ask him, what advice would you give to young founders? What are 2 or 3 pieces of advice you give to young founders?
Sure, sir. So what advice you would want to give to
I've
young
said this
founders?
earlier. Number one, I'd say what I've told you also earlier today, which is dream big but start small. And I've told you why. Dreams keep you going. Start small because you want to fail small, because you will fail in the beginning very often, maybe 3, 4 times. So those failures should be small, but enough to learn from. They shouldn't wipe you out completely. Second thing I'd say is that the customer's money is better than the investor's money. The reason is simple. If you're getting the customer's money, getting it repeatedly, you're getting at a price higher than your cost, then chances are you have a viable business if you get enough customers. And if you're getting the customer's money on these terms, you will almost certainly get the investor's money, because investors love to invest behind businesses that are getting the customer's money. However, if you get the investor's money first, there's no guarantee you'll get the customer's money. Because getting investor's money is very often about impressing 2 MBAs in the mid-20s with your PowerPoint. So if you get the investor's money, very often it's your PowerPoint working. If you get the customer's money, your product is working.
Yeah.
Right? So focus on the customer's money. The third is you should raise money when the investor comes to you and not when you have to go to the investor. The fourth is all businesses are people's businesses. So be good to people. An entrepreneur has to be a personal magnet for talent. So you have to be able to get people to want to work with you.
You have to be a great storyteller.
It's not just storyteller. You got to be honest. You got to be trustworthy. You got to be good with people.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell a story, but a story had better be true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the people skills I learned in my first job at Lintas. And you got to be very good with people, because the whole thing runs on teams.
Right. You also mentioned that you are financially successful when you are doing better than your sister-in-law's husband.
Oh, that was a joke. That was a lighthearted thing. That's what a friend of mine joked with me and said that.
That was a very good one.
Yeah.
I liked it actually. But thank you so much, sir. This was
Thank
super,
you.
super insightful. I hope I could do justice to your time by asking some
thank you,
new
sir.
questions. And thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this.
Okay.